Hello, we're going to be making a dice game, which was my first assignment in CS230, so I'm sure a lot of people will relate to this. Now, if you're just here to copy the code and move on, let me scroll down. There you go, you got it all. Now, if you're here because you want stuff explained to you, like in depth, you just don't know what's going on at all, that's what I'm going to do. If you're like me, then all of your professors are completely incoherent and you have no clue what's going on. And then I know a lot of people, they go into computer science in college and they've just never seen code before. So I'm going to go through absolutely everything. Now, my first assignment was a dice game. If you have a different thing, that's alright. Comment it, I'll make it. I'll show you how to make it. Be fun. Okay, so this is our dice game. Now, in Visual Studio Code, which I'm using, if you hit Control F5, it'll run the dice game, and you can see in that little terminal at the bottom, I just made it big, that's where it outputs everything. So you see it printed the statement, would you like to play a game of dice, yes or no? I'm gonna say yes, and then you see the dice are rolling, and then it rolled 2 dice for me. I got snake eyes apparently because my score is 2, and the computer rolled 2 2s. His score is 4, and I gotta hold that L. And no, I would not like to roll again. And so the program ends. And that is how that goes. So, let's take a look at everything that's going on. I prepared this little diagram. Hold up. Okay, so you will learn how to make flowcharts and diagrams in CS230, or at least you're supposed to, but I was terrible at that. So this is my diagram. First off, you have the proposition. The computer asks you if you want to play. You say yes, a flag gets set to true. Then the loop happens. It's a while loop. It's while that flag set right here is true, it will keep running the game. So first off, the computer, it creates 2 random numbers that represent the dice, 2 random numbers between 1 and 6, and adds them together. Then it compares its score to your score, it prints if you lose or win, and then it asks you if you want to play again. And then the break is going to be the final part, and that's when you say no, and you leave your computer behind, and that is when you truly win. So let's get rid of that display capture, and bring the code back up. Now, the first thing you want to do, you heard me say that you need a random number, but Python, it cannot make random numbers all just out of the box. And so we have our first thing, the import. Imports are going to be useful for a lot of things. You have to, for a lot of math functions, you need to import math. For like square roots or sines or cosines, you need to import math. And then for random numbers, you need to import random. Now, if you just need one function from something, then you can say from random import randint, because we're going to be using randint and nothing else from the random library. Now, why do this at all? Why not just have all the code all the time? I made this other terrible diagram to show why, and I would love to show it to you because I drew a tractor. Okay, so your problem is you need to hammer this nail. This is all the code on the left. It's the tractor. You don't need all that. You can hammer a nail with it. You don't need it. It's slower. You have to get it to the nail. You gotta drive it. You know, there might be a fence with a gate or something. You gotta take down the gate to get the tractor there. So you just have some of the code. Some of the code is the hammer that's in the back seat, you know, behind the seat of the tractor. You just take the hammer and you go get it. Sometimes you need to bring shovel with you too, and that's when you import shovel. You import shovel, and then you're good. So there's just no point in having all the code all the time, because it would make everything slow and bad. So you import the code you need, and that's good. So we're going to import random. Now I'm just going to show you that if I hit Control F5 on this code, and I make terminal big so you can see it, it will print a random number, 5, 2, 4, 4, and I'm just going to show that importing random and importing this longer statement down there is exactly the same. Okay, And so now I'm just gonna show you that these two do basically the same thing, but a little bit different. Because if I uncomment this and comment this out, you'll see that an error occurs, and that's because now I have to go random dot. And I'll look into that. I don't really know why I gotta do that, I just do. So I'm gonna leave it as this second statement that lets me have shorter. Because this is just importing specifically the random integer function. Okay, so that is the first line of code covered and explained. Let's make sure everything's good over here. Yeah, everything's good over here. Everything's good over there. Okay, next we have rolling equals true. That's just a stupid thing to say until we learn about variables. There's a lot of variables. So the first variable type I'm going to tell you about is the integer. Now an integer is just a number, right? It's a whole number. No decimals. You see, if I even put decimals over here because I'm creating an integer, it'll just ignore those decimals. So I'm going to pull up the terminal and run this for you so you can see what I'm talking about. See, that first 17 has no decimals, and that's because it's just cutting them all off. Truncating, if you will. It's a terrible word. The next variable type is the floating point. This is a whole number that includes decimals. You can have as many decimals as you want. Up to like 2. I'm just gonna cut that whole train of thought out. Okay. You can have as many decimals as you want with one of these guys. Real useful. The next, we have the string. Now, the string contains characters in quotations specifically. You gotta have those quotations. And then the boolean, which is what we have right here. Rolling is a boolean. It's either true or false. A boolean is just a true or false statement. That's all it is. So here I'm just printing them all out. And you can see that again. How all these work. We got the integer, the floating point, the string, and the boolean, which is just a true or false, or a 1 or 0. Okay, so this is our boolean. And then next, this is the proposition from the diagram that I so painstakingly created, where the computer is asking you if you would like to play the game. And so to get that user input, we're creating a string variable called play that's going to contain the input from the user. And we're specifying that as a string just so that nothing messes up. So over here, I have an input example. And so here we have a variable called user input. And we're going to say equals input, and then in the parentheses for that function, we have what we want it to say. So the terminal is going to say input something, dang it. And so we can pull up the magic terminal and hit Control F5. And it's going to say input something, and then it's going to wait for me. And so I'm going to input apple. And it's going to say apple to me back because I said print user input right here. Yes, that is visible. Print user input. So it's going to print that user input. Okay. So now I'm going to do something to show you something else. So here we have print user input plus 2. And so I'm going to run this again. But this time I'm going to input a number. I'm going to input 2. And 2 plus 2, that's equaled 4 since like before I was born. But this does not work. This is broken. You see this? This is broken. And it tells you why. It says in line 8 there's a problem. And then it says there's a type error. Can only concatenate string, not int to string. Now, that's a whole bunch of words, but I think concatenate means the plus. That's a plus sign. It's a terrible word for plus sign. And that's because when you get input from a user, it automatically makes it a string, and you can't add, even though it's a 2, it's still a string like a character on a keyboard and not the number 2. So what we have to do to do math with it, because you can't do math with words, no matter what your algebra teacher says, is we have to specify that we're getting an integer value from the user input, and then and only then can we do math with it. So let's do some math with it. So I'm going to say 2. And then it says 4, just like we would expect. Even before I was born, it equaled 4. Or so I've been told. Okay. We're back to the code. Okay. So we have the Boolean rolling equals true. It's true until we say it's not true. We have the user input. They can say yes or no. And now we're going to specify how many sides our dice have. So these are going to be used in the random number polling down here. We have a minimum and a maximum. The minimum you can get on a die is 1, the max is 6, unless you have a big old die. We're going to say it's a 6-sided die, so we're going to say the max is 6. And then I'm going to go a little out of order because we have to do if statements and while loops. So I'm going to start with the if statement, because to explain while loops I kind of need a if statement. So here we have an integer variable that we're making called 1, and we're getting input from the user to assign a value to this integer, and we're saying if the user makes, inputs the number 1, if 1 equals 1, print 1 equals 1. And in this right here, this is an else if statement. This is else if 1 equals 2, print just joking, it equals 2. And then else, this is just anything else. This is if it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Apple, Christina, Applegate, Ludwig, Baldwin, Chris Christopherson. You just print this. Is anything else? Absolutely anything else you can think of. Joe Biden. You print, oi bruv, me arithmetic is off. So let's show the terminal. Here's a terminal. I love this terminal. No, this terrible terminal. We're gonna hit Control F5 to run the whole dang thing, and we're gonna input our number. We input 3. No, we're gonna input 1. 1 equals 1. We're gonna input 2. And would you look at that, it did absolutely everything I said it was gonna do. It is a glorious day. Okay, so that is if statements. You can just read them out loud and it makes sense. But don't forget your colons. Don't forget your colons. Very important. So let's go back and let's jump back one line and talk about while loops. So I got an example of a while loop right here. This is our Boolean. This is analogous to rolling equals true up here, because this is what controls our loop in the dice game. And then loop is going to control our loop in our loop example. So we're going to set loop to true. And then while loop, get it? We're going to get input every single cycle. We're going to say want to loop some more. And then if the person, they want to loop, they say yeah. And then the loop continues to equal true. Else if the user do not want to loop no more, they say nah, and then the loop equals false. So let us pull up our terminal and look at this and hit Control F5. Loop some more. Now I love looping, so I'm gonna loop as much as I can. Okay, I'm done looping. So I hit N, and then the program ended just as we specified. When I hit N, loop becomes false, and so we no longer loop. because it's false. Simple as that. So here, while rolling as we know is true. So it's gonna keep doing everything in here until rolling becomes false down at the end of our code here, which is the break, what we call the break. So while rolling, we're gonna say if play, which we got up here. That's if you want to play or not. If play equals yes, or yeah or yes, we're gonna do all this stuff. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna print the dice are a rolling. This is just fluff. It's not necessary to the actual working, to the program working. It does not need to happen. This is the code where we roll all of the dice. So we're gonna say we're gonna roll 2 dice each. The computer's gonna roll 2 dice, I'm gonna roll 2 dice, and we're gonna add up the numbers, and then we're gonna compare the numbers to each other. Whoever has the highest number, they win all the money. All the Monopoly bucks. So we're gonna do my score first because I gotta go first. So human score, I'm human, that's me. We're gonna do the random number twice. We're gonna say random.randint min max, which is we're choosing a random integer between 1 and 6, and we're adding that to another random integer between 1 and 6. And so the human score is gonna be something between 2 and 12, somewhere in there. Computer score, exact same thing. Random integer between 1 and 6 plus random integer between 1 and 6. And that will equal the computer score, and that's also going to be somewhere between 2 and 12. Now we're going to print, and we're going to use f strings. And this is, I think, the last thing I have up here. So we're going to print f strings, which this is a print statement, which we are familiar with from a couple other places, except now we have variables in the middle of the string. So let's hop on over to our f string example. And an f string is a lot like a string, just it has an f in front of it. Right? Now this string, this is a good old string, but it's not very flexible. So I've got a couple variables here, a couple string variables. 1 is roast beef. 2 is the most beef. So I have this statement here, roast beef is the most beef. And I have this f string here that instead says variable 1 is variable 2. Now these variables have to be in curly brackets. So you do f quote, open curly bracket, var1, close curly bracket is open curly bracket, var2, close curly bracket, close quotations, and parentheses in print. So these are going to say the exact same thing. So I'm going to pull up the terminal and prove it to you because I've been accused of lying before. Roast beef is the most beef, and it... Okay, so now I'm going to change these variables. I'm going to say variable 1 is now ham sandwich, and variable 2 is now a damn sandwich. Okay, so this one is going to stay the exact same because it's just a print state. It's just a string, hard-coded. This one is going to change though because it's more versatile. Pull that up and prove that to you once again because I've been called a liar before. So now our hard-coded statement, roast beef is the most beef, is the same as we expected. But our f string is different. It says ham sandwich is a damn sandwich, and it really is. So now we are printing the human score and we're printing the computer score, but we haven't determined who's gonna win. Who's gonna win? Now you could do this yourself, or you can make the computer do it. We are gonna make the computer do it. So we have this big old if statement, right? We say if the human score is greater than the computer score, then we have our little semicolon because it's so very important. We print, oi, you win. Else if the human score is less than the computer score, print, oi, hold this L. And anything else, if anything else happens, which is only going to be one other thing that happens, and that's if the numbers are completely equal. We're going to say, it's a tie, why don't you have another go, why don't you? And then we reach the end of our if statement. There's nothing to be done with those numbers after that. And then we just have one final question for the player, which is, do you want to play again? Now you can say yes or no, and if you say yes, remember it goes back up here because we're still in the loop. It says if we say yes, then we do all this again, but if we say no, it will go boop, 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 down to our else statement right here, and then rolling equals false, which kicks us out of this loop. We can no longer play. So let us play this dice game one more time, now with the understanding of how it all works and understanding that a ham sandwich is a damn sandwich. So let's click on this. Let's hit Control F5. Would we like to play a game of dice? Now remember, this is right now in the code, we are at this line. This is where we get our input right now. So let us continue to the next step. Yes, I do believe I would like to play a game of dice. And in the whole game it goes crazy. The dice are rolling. Whoa, that happened a little fast. So this, then it goes down into the statement, the while loop. We say if play equals yes, we know it equals yes because we typed yeah. So it goes down in here and says the dice are a rolling. Then it calculates all these random numbers, adds them together. That's the dice rolling. And then that is where we get all of these numbers from. We have a tie. Incredible. And so in that case, here it said it added all these numbers together. Every single dice was a 3. I think it's a little bit rigged, but that's fine. The F strings print out our scores to the terminal. It went through here and it went down the else branch because none of these other things were true. So it printed it's a tie. And then now it's asking us the final question. Do we want to play again? No, I do not want to play again. I've been playing this thing for the past hour. So I'm gonna say nah. And then he gets all pissy about it because he's always pissy about it. And again, so we now play equals nah because I typed n. So it comes back up here to the top because rolling still equals true in his eyes. Then we come here and play no longer equals yeah or yes because I typed n. So then it comes down here. You can see this little white line that connects this if to this else. And then rolling now equals false. And we can escape this loop. And that is the end of that. That's how you make a dice game. That's how you pass CS230 apparently. That's how I did it. I had like a 94, I think. I didn't check. Wait. I'm not gonna show my math, my calculus grade. That was terrible. I finished with a 98. See ya. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.